In 2022, Overwatch 2 releases. As a sequel to Overwatch 1, there are some expectations. Although many players, including myself, were already dreading it, the game completely fails. It fails as a sequel, making almost no relevant changes to the original game to justify the new title. In addition to other failed promises like the PvE update, the game has turned into monetization hell. The Battle Pass doesn't even give you the currency back that you spent on it, which has been established as a standard by when the game releases. All of the skins in the game are now required to be bought with either credits or coins, these being significantly harder to get than in Overwatch 1, making the best way to get a skin spending real money for something that could have been unlocked with a few hours of gameplay previously. It's clear from the backlash they received how hated these systems are, but it didn't even matter to Activision Blizzard. The standard for live service video game monetization had been established as something that should be as manipulative as possible, and all they did was take it one step further. Predatory tactics involving limited time battle passes and shops are in almost every game and function exclusively to extract as much money as possible out of customers. All of these strategies rely on psychological manipulation, and the most egregious thing is the use of fear of missing out, or FoMO. This blatant abuse cannot be justified under the guise of profit, and it certainly cannot be tolerated any longer. Communities need to do something before this standard is engraved in stone. What seems most likely to succeed is boycotting the monetization systems. This is not an easy task, as we have been conditioned to feel great desire towards release skins and an almost unbearable fear of missing out. But if we do nothing, these systems will stay forever, or until something worse comes around. Most games will have a system of unpaid and paid currency. This paid currency is typically purchased in intervals with a bonus based on how expensive it was. It is used to buy items like the Battle Pass or skins, and it can sometimes be obtained through gameplay without paying, but only in small amounts that can prove very insignificant. A Battle Pass is a series of progressively unlocked rewards, ranging from items affecting gameplay to cosmetics, and occasionally more in-game currency. Rewards can be unlocked through a combination of playtime and in-game objectives. In a Battle Royale game, for example, you may receive increased experience or progress based on how long you survived and how well you performed during the match. There might also be challenges you have completed that grant additional experience, such as getting a certain number of kills or looting a certain number of chests. It could really be anything. A Battle Pass will eventually run out of rewards and is normally kept on a timer. That means if you don't play the game enough, you will run out of time and lose out on the items in the Battle Pass forever. The main difference between shops and Battle Passes is that items do not typically get locked permanently, although they can go out of cycle and you will have no idea when they will come back. These shops let you trade the paid currency for items or cosmetics. They are typically on a rotating schedule that could be daily, weekly, monthly, or any schedule. The shops also don't typically mention if or when the item will return, so there is uncertainty of whether you will have another chance to buy an item in the shop. The main thing I will be talking about is fear of missing out, which is the primary thing exploited by these systems. The description on this article includes two processes. Firstly, perception of missing out, followed up with a compulsive behavior to maintain these social connections. FOMO is explained as a desire to stay connected with others. In terms of games, this is shown through the relationship between players with each other through in-game cosmetics. Players often feel like their cosmetics are how they connect with their peers and are often their only options to express themselves. A quick note before we continue, this relationship is not very well established. There is a relationship pointed out by this study between gaming and fear of missing out. However, this was the only study I could find, and it only has a sample size of around 1,600. I do have a lot of personal experience and testimonies from people who experienced this, but it's not like super well defined, and there needs to be more research conducted. Battle passes and shops take advantage of fear of missing out and other tactics to manipulate audiences into spending more money than they would have otherwise. In this article, Bank mentions, a common technique is the introduction of limited time events, offers, and promotions, which trigger the so-called fear of missing out, an urge to buy the respective limited item before that opportunity is gone forever. It is also mentioned the systemic use of concepts associated with fear of missing out and the sunk cost fallacy that pressure consumers into the purchase of microtransactions constitutes a violation of self-determination principles, as the commercial benefits of microtransactions exercise dominance over players' innate emotionality, while habit-building mechanisms facilitate behavior mostly favored by the choice architect. This was a study done over mobile games, which have the primary differences that most purchases will directly assist gameplay and have to be done in a few seconds rather than days or weeks. However, this does not diminish from the point that Bank is making, as the psychological effects that fear of missing out has is the same. It takes away the player's ability to make a self-determined decision. In addition to fear of missing out, games almost always have confounding principles that diminish a player's understanding of the monetary value. For example, the bonuses when buying currency and the small amounts you receive during gameplay serve to make you feel just a little bit closer to making the next purchase, incentivizing you to continue playing for longer and boost your playtime, as well as making you more likely to spend money for more currency because you feel like you're already closer to owning the item than you actually are. The ease of purchasing items with just 1 or 2 buttons incentivizes impulse buying and makes it very easy to spend even the equivalent of $20 on something that you might not even really want that much, or might not be worth $20 to you if you recognized this is $20 worth of currency that I'm spending, but the game does its best to hide that from you. Overall, these systems work to diminish the perceived value of the currency and make players more likely to buy extra and then have them spend it on things without really considering the weight of their purchase. While these systems of bonus currency and ease of purchase are beneficial to players for the most part, they do contribute to the psychological manipulation being employed. Of course, the companies and teams behind these games have to be considered. They need to sustain themselves. Continual profits are necessary in the marketplace, especially in the context of a live service game where development is constant. The systems can still exist, and they don't even need to change that much, but they can be significantly less predatory. The main difference that we need to see is a removal of the time limitations. Battle passes do not need to be limited by time. And for example, look at how Helldivers manages their system. They function exactly the same as battle passes, but they have no time limit and a player can make a decision on which one they want at any time. They don't go away or have special incentives. They give the player full autonomy on their decision. In addition to battle passes, shops don't need to be limited by time either. Many games already have this implemented, for example, Dead by Daylight, the Finals, or even Overwatch, partially. This means that monetization would still exist, and content could still be released on the same schedule, meaning they don't have to change anything about their system, but players would have more time to make their decisions and less direct manipulation of the players. And this change would also be beneficial for the companies. This would mean that old content would still be able to bring in income, so by creating a large amount of content in the form of different battle passes, the game isn't losing out on those forever as soon as the battle pass is over. Rather, it is just a stockpile for players to buy in the future. In addition, requiring players to play consistently to finish a battle pass can cause drops in player counts. This can cause massive burnout. In almost every game where there's a battle pass that makes me personally feel forced to play it, I burn out in almost a week. Because I feel like I'm forced to hop on the game, it stops being fun. I'm just exclusively playing for the battle pass. And compared to other games where the battle pass is not the primary focus, I end up playing for a lot longer. It could take me over a month to burn out of some games like that. Daily requirements can also have this issue. They can make a game become stale. You're forced to hop on for 30 minutes to do your daily quests. It gets pretty frustrating whenever that's all you get to do in a game. You hop on, do your dailies, and get off. You don't really get to have any fun. These things, they combine, and players will be upset and not want to play and lose motivation, and they will just stop playing the game. As additional evidence, a study was performed on the following characteristics and their relation to one another: gaming disorder, self-compensation, motivation, game flow, time spent gaming, and FoMO. It describes gaming disorder as having 3 core symptoms, the first one being impaired control over gaming, the second one being increased priority to gaming more than other life interests and daily activities, and 3, continuation or escalation of gaming despite negative outcomes. the study concludes that gaming disorder is closely related to all the premises. Fear of missing out can increase time spent gaming and facilitate gaming disorder. Essentially, having an addiction can increase feelings of fear of missing out, and having fear of missing out can worsen an addiction. This means that by incorporating these tactics to increase the player's feeling of fear of missing out, they are directly worsening addictions and damaging people's health. Time spent gaming is also a factor of gaming disorder, which means that fear of missing out and the incentives for players to play consistently, time spent gaming is increased, which also causes worse gaming disorder. Overall, this addiction, like any addiction, can be damaging to physical and mental health, and the tactics employed to monetize these games are directly influencing this horrible cycle of addiction. One of the best examples of far too predatory monetization is Overwatch 2, which was briefly discussed in the intro but can be more thoroughly explained now. Overwatch 2 released and immediately faced staunch backlash from the community. Many who had complained about the loot box system before immediately realized that the loot box system, where you could pay money but you didn't need to, is much preferred to being required to pay money. Overwatch 2 removed the ability to unlock things for free, opting for an in-game shop, which barely added new content, and it made previously free and very easily unlockable content $10, $20, or even more. And it did this by adding a rotating shop rather than having everything unlockable through free credits. Previously, the only locking that happened was to specific yearly events which would come around every year, and you could just buy them during that event. Overwatch 2 also added a battle pass system, which has the same issues that most do, which is the time limit. However, Overwatch 2 went a step further and did not even include premium currency in the battle pass, instead including nothing. And this system indeed tricked players into thinking they were getting the premium currency when they were not. I have seen many posts about this where players were very upset because they had bought the battle pass thinking they would get enough currency to buy it back, and they didn't get any. One of the most egregious things that Overwatch 2 did was restrict new heroes to the premium battle pass exclusively. This was changed very quickly to letting you unlock them through quests, but ultimately that system was still very hated. After the amount of community outrage Overwatch 2 justifiably faced, they were forced to revoke a lot of changes, such as adding loot boxes back, which happened later, putting a little bit, not enough, but a little bit, of the premium currency back in the battle pass, and completely removing the system of unlocking heroes. I include this example to show how allowing companies can do this can cause many problems in the future, as Activision Blizzard did this because they thought they could get away with it. We're lucky that they didn't, and that the community was able to speak out against it enough, but more companies will be willing to try things until they have found every single thing they can exploit, and then they will find more things to exploit after that point. Potential solutions to this problem are difficult. There's no real internally motivating factor within the industry to make positive change. As such, they will continue to employ manipulative tactics to increase company value. Change will only happen via external pressure. The only change that can be made on the developer side would be from independent creators who have user experience in mind. However, even this change wouldn't be enough by itself, as there are very few live service games produced by small studios and independent creators. Another possible solution would be to try and implement legislation to ban time-sensitive battle passes. However, video games are worldwide, and banning games like this would only limit accessibility. The solutions that seem to have the greatest chance of success involve a community effort. One solution could be through review bombing, which is the player base leaving as many negative reviews as possible to make the game's average review score very low. This incentivizes the developers to fix whatever the problem they are being reviewed for quickly. The company must also care about reviews for this to work, though. For some companies, it just doesn't matter as much as their income. For example, the Black Ops series. There are so many games that have been absolutely tanked in their reviews, but they just don't care to fix them. Black Ops 3 is an example of this. They've had a security issue for a while, and they will never fix it. This strategy has worked before in the case of Helldivers 2 and its PSN changes, which limited access to the game of the users in certain countries. Even for those who had already paid the game was review bombed, and Sony fixed the problem. Another possible solution would be a mass boycott of a game or monetization system inside a game. Through mass organization, the company could be left starved for profits and be forced to fix their systems to reflect what the community wants. The problem with this idea comes from the difficulty of organizing an online community. There are young players and really any players who don't interact with the game on social media, or they just don't care enough. They'll have no idea that anything's happening, or they won't care and they will not participate. It still could be a successful strategy if enough of the community participates for long enough. To conclude, limiting an item's availability can cause fear of missing out. By refusing the player adequate time to make a decision and abusing psychological manipulation strategies, these games strip users of their economic autonomy. Removing the time constraint on limited time items could prove beneficial for the health of a game, and continuing this tradition could make players unhappy and end up lowering the play counts. Finally, a study shows a considerable connection between gaming disorder, fear of missing out, time spent playing, and motivation. These things work with each other to perpetuate a cycle of addiction, and the monetization systems fuel this cycle. Solutions to this problem incorporate community involvement, with the best options being review bombing and community boycotts. While gaming is supposed to be a hobby, the profit-seeking incentives of corporations threaten this nature and have been turning games into a commodity to be exploited. It is imperative that the gaming community does something to fight these manipulative tactics so that games are not ruined forever.